What's going on, San Marcos, Texas? Welcome to episode 85 of Talk and Throws Podcast Texas Style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Janelle.
And we are throws coaches with the track club, The Throwing Factory. You can check out our website, thethrowingfactory.com. Guys, we're getting ready for our indoor season. We're scheduled to go to Arkansas January the 14th, Texas Tech on the 21st, and then OU on the 28th. So if you're in those meets, come by and introduce yourself and say hello. And then also Coach Kai and Coach Coach Kai and Coach Jarvis are looking for lessons and also teammates to build their team for 2023. So if you live in one of those distinct areas of the east side of Dallas or the west side of Fort Worth, you can reach out to them and get some information on team memberships. Also to remind that we also have a shopping page on the website, the throwingfactory.com shopping page. So if you're looking for cool apparel, whether it's a Christmas gift or something like that, we're having discount prices through the holidays that you can go buy, a real cool t-shirt if need be. Thank everybody for our sponsors for Season 5. We're coming to an end. Season 6 will be starting in January. But right now, our sponsors for this year, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. Guys, that winter clinic is about 2 to 3 weeks away. Remind everybody that on Saturday, January the 7th, Adam Setliff is going to be speaking on the discus from 11 to 11:45, and Steven Sines will be closing it out from 2 to 2:45 on shot put. But let me remind everybody that there is a virtual presentation that if you get the code, you can get a virtual clinic presentation. And my guy John Tempton will be doing the discus January the 10th, and that time is 7 to 8. And then he will be doing a shot put talk Thursday, January the 12th, and that will be 7 to 8 p.m. And John, as some people don't know, is a new throws coach at University of North Texas, coming from Sam Houston, and he's had a lot of success there. So the Winter Clinic, January 7th, 6th, and 7th at Great Wolf Lodge in Grapevine, Texas. 4throws.com, quality implements price right. Go to 4throws.com, use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. And we're talking hammers, javelins, indoor shot puts, outdoor shot puts, anything you need in the throwing world, go to 4throws.com. The hills will take care of you. Quarter Circle, making throwing more accessible. Right now, currently, we're running a special through Christmas. If you use this code, XMASTTFCA, that's XMASTTFCA, you'll get 15% off, and that will run through January the 9th through the following after the Winter Clinic. And then you can look some stuff up on the social media for Talk and Throws Podcast on the Instagram as well. Ready Up Athletic Development. Coach Zach Phillips is doing programming. Right now he has a program called Basic Throw Strength that you can find on Train Heroic. That website again is Train Heroic. If you use the code throws10, you're going to get 20% off. The program is called Basic Throw Strength, and this program is that multi-sport athlete that's transitioning from volleyball into throwing, from basketball into throwing, or even football into throwing. So this is a really good program to lay a foundation to get kind of that explosive muscle starting to firing so you can be able to throw far. Again, that website is Train Heroic, and just use that code throws10 to get that 20% off. Fiber Sports Discus. Our guy Bruce Caldwell. Back. There you go. Quality implements priced right. You can go to 4throws.com to look at your Fiber Sports Discus, or go to fibersportsdiscus.com, or if you have questions, you can reach out to Bruce Caldwell at 817-819-1472. And then also to remind everybody about the Big Frogs, Colleyville, that does all our boarding as well. They handle all our orders. So if you have something that needs embroidered, laser print, or something like that, or design, Big Frogs, Colleyville. So Our guest today on episode 85, she's currently competing professionally, and she's at grad school at Texas State University. She just made her first Olympic trials in 2021 in Eugene, where she had a PR in the qualifying rounds of the hammer of 252 feet, 11 and a half inches. She was a 12-time NCAA All American thrower at UCLA. Also in 2018, she became the first woman to qualify in 3 implements for a world championship for youth. That was in the hammer, shot, and discus. That same year in 2018 at the U20 World Championships, she took home the silver in the hammer. As a high school sophomore in 2016, she took home the bronze in the U20 World Championships in the shot put. And she is currently the national indoor high school record holder in the shot put and the outdoor for shot put. Her indoor mark is 57.85, and then her outdoor shot put record is 58.01. Please welcome to Talking Throws Podcast Texas Style, Alyssa Wilson. We are honored. We are very, very honored. You are on that pedestal of throwing, and we are honored to have you on. I will say we could talk to you for 4 hours. I don't want to do that to you. So whatever highlights you want to share, we're going to try to keep it to a minimum just for you. I could talk to you for 5 hours, but we won't do that.
Talking about you, please. You can have Alyssa on. So, it's super exciting.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on. You just turned professionally. So tell us, how's that going? Have you signed with the agent, and kind of what your plans are for the upcoming year?
Yeah, so I signed with an agent. I'm working with Karen Locke.
Okay.
I signed as soon as I was done competing at USA Outdoor Nationals last summer. And now I'm just working with her. She's trying to reach out to different shoe companies, and I think that nothing major will happen until I start the season and actually put out results as a professional athlete. So yeah, I'm working with Karen, and it's going great so far.
Awesome. Now, what will you be throwing as a professional? Because we know you're a master of 3 or 4. What are you going to be trying to throw as a professional?
I switched to hammer and discus.
Okay.
And then for indoor season, I'm still going to be throwing the weight just to earn some money.
Yeah. So you're going to compete indoors on a world level then?
Yeah, for the national level. So I'll compete in at least, I'd like to say 3 to 4 indoor meets this coming season.
Okay. So
looking forward to that.
Do you have your schedule so far?
Not yet. I just know that I'm going to be traveling with Texas State. Like, I'm going to go with the team and compete at one of the University of Houston meets, and possibly a meet at the New York Armory. I'd like to go to the Milrose games, but we'll see if I can get into that, and then USA Nationals.
Awesome. Okay. Good to know. Now, on an outdoor level, have you kind of set up your schedule? Because I know just the Diamond League's kind of announced that, the finals are going to be in Eugene. Is that something you're going to be kind of building towards, or trying to get it in some stuff overseas?
Yeah, hopefully if my numbers are good enough to get into those meets, that'd be awesome. Right now, I think my agent's working on getting some meets over in the UK, which would be awesome to travel to those. But other than that, I'm just going to stay mainly West Coast, potentially come over to the East Coast for pen relays to get to see some of my family. And yeah.
Awesome. Wow, you're big time now as being a professional. So, and you mentioned some sponsors with shoes. Is there anybody that you currently have sponsors with that you would kind of share with us?
Not as of now, no.
Gotcha. You don't have to share. Tell us anything. Now, will Coach Frazier be coaching you as a professional and overseeing your training?
Yeah, right now I'm still training out of Texas State because I'm still finishing up grad school over there. I have about another year left till I get my master's. So I'm going to be working with Coach Frazier up until the 2024 games, and hopefully well beyond that.
What will your master's degree be in?
Right now it's elementary education with a minor in criminal justice. So
Okay, well, I hope you don't need the criminal justice while teaching elementary kids, but I'm in education, so.
oh,
uh,
nice.
Awesome, yeah, that's awesome.
Can I ask why the the I don't want to say contrast, but
Yeah, so at out of UCLA, I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I was trying to go into psych to get my master's at Texas State, but it was too long of a process when I was transferring out after I graduated. So I went into elementary education with hopes to either becoming an elementary school teacher or a college coach in the future. And I didn't want to write a thesis, so I chose a minor.
There you go.
Smart move.
Good plan. Good plan.
So how's the adjustment been to San Marcos, Texas State? Because it's definitely not New Jersey.
Definitely not.
UCLA. How's that transition been?
At first, it was rough, I'd say probably for like a week or so, just transitioning from that huge atmosphere and environment down to, San Marcos, where everything is very, I don't want to say small, like a small town, because everything is spread out compared to LA. But overall, it's been good. Like I love it so much better than being at UCLA, just because the people are nicer out there, and it feels more connected, like a whole family, the whole athletics department, every indoor and outdoor meet last year when I was competing as a Bobcat. I actually had the athletic director text and would call me before and after every meet, which I thought was really like special.
Wow.
That he was reaching out to his athletes, and yeah, that's something like we didn't have at UCLA. So
I have a question about, do we really have Southern hospitality down here? Have you noticed that coming from LA and on the East Coast?
I'd say so, because like my home on the East Coast is pretty similar to LA because I live close to the beach over here, like in the Jersey Shore area. So I would compare my home to like UCLA, and then so yeah, everybody is super nice out there in Texas.
I would, in my mind, I would think it's a little culture shock going to San Marcos, Texas, but maybe not.
All right, so I'm asking you some tourist questions. Have you had some barbecue yet?
Yeah, that was the first place when I actually took an official visit there.
Okay.
Frazier took us to his favorite, I think, Barbecue Blacks or Kent Black's barbecue.
Yeah.
We went there.
Okay, good. So he wined and dined you there.
Second question, have you floated the river? Okay.
Yes. I'm a big beach girl, so going to San Marcos, I was looking for, the closest water spot, and everybody's like, you have to go to the river. So yeah, and like the really, really hot days the last year, it was like 100 degrees for a solid couple of weeks when we were in a heat wave. So I would go to the river every day after practice when I had time.
Gotcha.
Your own little beach.
So was that the first time you ever got into an inner tube and was like, we just sit here and move?
Yeah, it was really weird too, because then you're swimming with all the fish down there, and then it's the algae floating around.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden there's a float with like a big cases of beer and stuff going through.
We're a little interesting down here.
Yeah. Well, have you tried Slitterbahn yet?
No.
Which is a great water park. If you get some free time, I recommend. And
I thought this was about throwing. What is doing?
And the last question: have you bought some boots or been two-stepping yet?
No, I haven't.
Well, we got into true Texas stuff.
Yeah, well, my teammates out there were trying to get me to say some like Texas words, and I just couldn't do it.
Okay, one more. I just thought of this. Have you listened to George Strait yet?
Who?
I think our lifting coach last year would play some of that music in the weight room.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm on there. You're going to schedule to do a part 2, and we'll follow up on those questions and see if you chase some of those for sure. So all right. So you're doing great. You just turned pro. You're being a professional. You got your indoor season set up. Can we want to circle back to your high school career a little bit and kind of tell us how you got into throwing and kind of what that upbringing was like as a youth?
Right. So I grew up being a multiple sport athlete. I started playing soccer and basketball. Basketball was my main first love, first sport. I started in second grade. I was going all over the country on travel teams. I even was asked to play at the Wide World of Sports for a team 5 years older, just because I've always been on the taller side for basketball. So I started with basketball, and then in sixth grade, I did cross country, basketball, and outdoor track. And I started running to try to stay in shape for basketball, to be really athletic. And sixth grade, I went out for the track team, and one of the head track coach was like, "Oh, Alyssa, you're very like tall and strong. You want to try to throw discus?" So then the next day at practice, I went over there, started throwing discus, and she's like, "Oh, you're really strong. Let's do some shot put." And I kind of just naturally, I was good at it, you know. So then I went home and told my parents, and my dad was looking up YouTube videos, and he's like, "Oh, like you have this really good build for this. You should be a thrower." And you know, I continued playing basketball all throughout freshman and sophomore year of high school. And I'd say sophomore year of high school is when my like track career started taking off, and I was winning all the junior Olympic meets, and everybody's like, "Oh, who's this blonde girl from New Jersey?" So so I think I just really loved that attention and getting all that publicity from such a young age. And then my parents had to convince me to give up basketball to attend college for track, just based on how many injuries I had growing up playing basketball. I was on crutches like 5 times, ankle sprains, fractured feet, and it was just too stressful on the body. So then I gave up basketball and went full into throwing. And then my dad pretty much coached me growing up.
Wow.
Based off of YouTube videos and all that stuff.
Awesome.
And that was going to be my question. So when you looked up these YouTube videos, because we run a club too, and you know, we constantly, kids are coming up and watching YouTube and who should I watch and all this. Is there somebody you kind of looked at all the time on YouTube, or was it just did you just kind of Google discus and shot put?
No, just Google discus and shot put, and then my dad found this world's longest throws club based out of Georgian Court, and then I started training with one coach for like once a week, and then every other day of the week I was just with my dad. And it's kind of crazy because I was the first thrower in my family growing up. So
wow. So and were your parents athletic? Did you know kind of your background? What was their background?
They didn't go to college for sports, so I was the first one.
Wow.
What?
So I'm gonna go back, when you said you started liking track in 6th grade, right? Or 8th grade. So, and you went home and you told your dad, and he started watching YouTube videos. So from there, is he like, "All right, we're all in track"? Because you said then you traveled and did all that as a youth. So was it just, "All right, Alyssa, you're good at this, let's go. No questions asked. We're gonna take you where you want to go"?
I mean, I still played basketball during the winter season, and then outdoors was just full in with track. And my parents have always been there for me, and they've always been like a huge support system, and they still are. But yeah, so my dad would sit at every practice and, you know, listen to the coach and learn some more information, whether it was basketball, soccer, gymnastics, volleyball, to track. And yeah, so been through a lot.
So
That's awesome.
So from those YouTube videos, were you doing glide shot put first, or did you just jump in there rotational because you were trying to do rotational discus as well?
So I started off with the shuffle. It went from a stand throw to a shuffle to a glide. And actually my 8th grade year for shot put, I started spinning with the shot put. So I started spinning early with shot, and then discus, I started 6th grade spinning.
Wow.
Do you remember what any of your distances were at that like really young age when you first kind of were beating everybody. They're like, oh, she's good. Like in a little meet at school or something like that. What those
Right.
were?
I do remember 8th grade. I think I threw like 98 feet in discus
Oh, wow.
and let's say 33 feet 2 inches and with the 4K shot put out of 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
And then freshman year of high school, that's when everything just started clicking more for me with the throwing world. And I jumped right to 140 feet 1 inch with discus and I think 48 something in shot put as a freshman.
Wow. So you had to be a natural athlete, obviously. Where did the strength come from? Where did the drive? Because you kind of figuring out your life as a 13, 14-year-old. Were you saying, okay, is that just something inside of you, or is it something that you kind of got hooked on winning, so to speak? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. So I've always like a lot of people.
Did you do rotation at 6 months old?
Yeah. So a lot of people, like when I talk about this, they're like, oh, Alyssa, you're insane. Take a break. But I'm the type of person, I don't like to take a day off. Like I always have to be doing something athletic related. So we'd have snowstorms and I'd be out there in my driveway shooting free throws or threes, playing basketball like in a snowstorm.
Oh wow.
Like I was crazy. But yeah, so I'm very competitive when it comes to athletics. So I guess I've just always been driven to do better and perform when it matters. And yeah, so.
Well, you mentioned something a while ago about your dad watching stuff, and you said gymnastics. So did you do some gymnastics?
I did gymnastics for about 3 years. I think I was maybe 11 through 14.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's a big, important part of balance.
Yeah, for sure. And what position did you play in basketball on that travel team?
I was a small forward, also shooting guard. So I would dabble in either position.
Gotcha. So you go into high school, you throw over, 47 feet, you throw 140 feet 1 inch. I'm sure you probably had success. I'm going to ask you this because I'm looking at your numbers off athletic.net. Do you remember the first time you threw over 50 feet in a shot?
It feels like so long ago. But I'd like to say I want to say it was during the summertime, sophomore year in the summer at one of the meets in New Jersey.
Gotcha. Wow. Did you recognize how those marks were comparing to what was going on in the US, especially for your age that early?
I don't think it really sunk in with me until my junior year of high school. Because I competed in all the like New Balance outdoor, indoor national meets. But it wasn't until I'd like to say my junior year of high school where I was really competitive up at the top.
Yeah. And were you thinking about doing this in college at that time? Going that far, I'm sure you were getting a lot of recognition, especially like I saw some of your articles for the USA Today and all that type stuff. Were you thinking that going to the Olympics at that time, was that your dream? Is that kind of what your mentality was at that young of age?
Back then, I still think my mentality was more like, oh, let's get to UConn and play for Gino for basketball. So I was kind of just throwing for fun and, I was doing well, performing well, and I loved the publicity that came along with it and just all that recognition throughout high school. Yeah, I just really excelled off of that.
Gotcha. So back question, do you still shoot basketball? So while you're home on the break, will y'all get out and bust a basketball out and play?
Every now and then. I'd say maybe like twice a year I do. But I think I didn't really have that make an Olympic team dream until 2016 when I made my first U20 world team.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. And that was during your 11th grade year. And that's what I was going to talk about. You all of a sudden, you just within 3 years, man, you're on the fast track. So talk to me a little bit about technical stuff. That young, what were you kind of thinking as a cue to be able to kind of generate enough power to throw that far? Because and the reason I ask is there's a lot of girls that are very talented, strong, big, and fast, but they don't understand the technical aspects to throw far. I am surely guessing that you had to understand some of that to be throwing better than most of the college athletes were at that time, at such an early age.
Right. So when I entered high school, I had a powerlifting background. So I was lifting, following Louis Simmons' West Side Barbell
Yeah.
philosophy. So I was doing a lot with that with my coach, Mark Deppin, over there at Donovan Catholic. And I think a lot of my power came from that, as well as every night I would try to do between 200 to 300 full turns. So I'd go through footwork, and my dad would like stand down there and watch me, making sure I didn't lead with that left arm, and I re-wrapped out the back and, stayed on that left foot really long when I punched through.
Wow. So you would do this every night, 2 to 3, and like in your basement?
Every night, just so I would be able to get the footwork down. And then for shot put specifically throughout high school, I did a lot of, my dad found something online. I think I would throw the 12-pound shot put. So the boys' high school shot put, anywhere from 8 to 12 throws with that, standing throws. And then I would drop to the 4K and do some standing throws with the 4K, and then go to full throws with the 4K.
I'm
And
going to go back to, I'm sorry I interrupted you, to the fact that I teach high school kids, have coached forever. I am how much discipline and hard work ethic you had to do that every night, to take the time. That right there tells you what sets you apart. So did you feel in doing that you were missing out on something else, taking the time to do 200 to 300 turns, or is that just what you did?
Yeah, I really I didn't do much throughout high school other than like track and school. So I really didn't have, I had my close friends, but I wasn't going places every night, whatnot. So I made those necessary sacrifices in order, to get that full ride to UCLA to pay off in the end eventually.
I love that. Necessary sacrifices. That's it. That's awesome. Oh. Sorry, he had a question.
No, I didn't.
I was just in awe because I think now of kids who have big dreams and work hard, but that commitment level is impressive.
Was it, I'm guessing too, that was some bonding time between you and your father as well, being your coach as well.
Right. Yeah. So we have the really close bond. And it's really good now because working with Coach Frazier, he's kind of close to another father figure that I have in my life. And I think it goes to show because he has kids of his own. He has 2 daughters and a son. So I'm really close with him, and he's close with my parents too. He's like family to me. So my dad will text and call him maybe like once a week or so, and they'll talk over what we've been working on, which is good.
Oh, wow. So does Coach Frazier show up to family Thanksgiving dinner with his glasses on and his shirt buttoned all the way up and his collar topped up?
If only we lived a little closer.
Only. Yeah, I joke with him every time I see him. He has those shades on, so I'm like, his future's so bright, he's got to wear shades, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, he's always wearing sunglasses.
Exactly. He's cool like that. That's what I love him so much. So, your records speak for themselves. Your high school career is just unbelievable. One thing I want to ask though is you also had great experience in the hammer throw as well. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, how are you juggling learning hammer as a high school athlete when you were doing 200 to 300, air ghosts, in your basement, and learning discus as well? How did that come about?
So I started throwing hammer freshman year of high school. I took it on after discus was taking off for me, throwing really well in that, and my dad was like, oh, let's try hammer because if you go to college for this, why not, it looks fun, you should give it a try. Very similar, and he was like, yeah, it's very similar, the turns and the rotation and all that, but it's not. So I tried it and I really liked it, so I would throw hammer once a week at our training sessions on Sundays. So I went from high school throwing hammer only once a week, now to college throwing it 5-6 days a week.
Oh, wow. And that's hard, the heel toe approach and the hammer and your dad was overseeing this training?
Yeah, so my dad learned a lot from YouTube videos and
Oh, wow.
kind of just took off from there.
Does he have like an engineering or like physics, biomechanic background or something?
No.
No.
I'm just impressed that he can take a video and you're coachable to figure all that out.
Yeah, very much a visual learner.
Right, right. Yeah, so then I would sit there and watch videos with him and kind of take it all in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it was a lot of work.
I'm sure. I'm definitely for sure. Because you even picked up the weight during high school as well, which is, I'm sure that might have helped you in your powerlifting, just being so strong from the pull and the deadlift. But that's a little bit different than the hammer as well.
Right, right. Yeah. So for the weight throw, back then I would just, grip the weight throw and just chuck it as far and as hard as I could. But now I have more of a hammer throw technique throwing the weight.
God, you just grip and rip it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. So let's, can we go to your two things I want to highlight is you're the national record holder in the indoor shot put, and you're also the national record in the outdoor shot put. Have you had to sit back and think about what that kind of means in broad spectrums of U.S. throwing and kind of walk us through, did you ever think that you would get that far as quickly as you did?
No, looking back at that now, it's pretty crazy that, I came from practically like no throwing background whatsoever, mainly just being athletic, playing basketball and other sports growing up. And, to go to that and take down that record from, Michelle Carter, Raven Saunders, these women that I would look up to, is just crazy to me. And then when I was giving up shot put after I graduated college, everybody was like, "Oh, you're done throwing shot put. What if you can make a comeback?" But it's just not going to happen because now hammer is my strong point, and they're two different events, so I have to like separate myself. And I kind of fell out of love with shot put once I hit that 18-meter barrier and broke that. It's kind of like I never touched it again. And it just wasn't fun for me anymore. So
yeah. And because I've had discussions with other people on the podcast and other coaches throughout the country, is usually that third implement is kind of the frustration implement where you're having a bad day throwing shot and disc, things are not clicking, go pick up the hammer and just kind of reset yourself, to reboot yourself. Is that kind of maybe what happened to you to kind of shift that love from shot put to hammer, what you're doing currently?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, like I'll still, like every now and then I'd be like, "Oh, Fraser, can I go throw a couple of shot put throws, just to, like reset my mind and take my mind off of how I'm competing in discus and hammer right now." But I haven't done that since last June or July, whenever nationals were. But yeah, that's why I did like throwing all three throughout college, just because if, I was having a bad day in discus and shot put competition was that afternoon, I could kind of use it as a way to redeem myself and make myself feel a little bit better about my performance for that day.
Awesome. So that day at the Pan Am U20s in Peru, you go 58 3/4 to break the national record. Kind of tell us what, in a series, what throw was that, and was there something that you're starting to feel that day? And the reason I ask is, looking back at your senior year, you were consistently 54, 55. You had that 157, but never kind of really kind of bumped up to that 58. So was it Peru?
Yeah, so that was my second US junior national team that I was ever on. So I think having that experience of traveling to Poland by myself, that was my first time flying internationally alone. Just having that experience under my belt kind of set me up better and to know what to expect there in Peru. And it was really great because Coach Fraser actually was able to make the trip out there to Peru. And yeah, so he flew out there himself. This was the summer before entering UCLA, so I had already signed there. So he
Okay.
was coming out to watch me. So it was great to have his support there. I think I threw my 1771 on my third throw,
Gotcha.
and I actually had two foul. So it was foul, foul, and then I popped out the 1771.
Oh, wow.
Going into that throw, my mindset was kind of like, Alyssa, this is your last ever high school competition. You might as well go all out. And I'm not sure at the time if I had already had that outdoor national record or whatnot. I don't know if I did. I think I did.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of size shot put did you throw, or do you throw back in those days? Size.
I think it was a 108.
So so right almost.
So it was either a 108 millimeter Nishi or Polanic.
Okay.
One
I
of
was
the
just
two.
kind of curious to know what size, ball you were pushing on to be able to generate that much power to throw far and stuff like that. So do you still have that shot put?
Yeah, it's in my garage somewhere.
Is it? You have it labeled. This was the record holder.
No. No, nothing that fancy.
Not fancy. Yeah, we might have I'm sure you're going to go into the New Jersey Hall of Fame at some point. We need to get that put on in the Hall of Fame for their high school sports or something like that too. So getting to that recruitment of that process, you're the best thrower in the country by far. You're a 3 implement stud. Kind of what was the recruiting process for you? Because I'm sure everybody was calling. Kind of where did you go on your visits? Who are some of the people that you looked up, and then ultimately, what made you go all the way across the country to UCLA?
Yeah, that was a very stressful time because I'm the oldest kid in my family. It's just me and my younger sister Brianna, who's 4 years younger than me. But I was the first one in my family to go into college at all. So I'm the first college grad, first generation.
Awesome.
So it was kind of new to my parents, the whole recruiting process and whatnot. So I was asking my high school coaches a lot of questions, my trainers, and ultimately I would go into school every single morning, and I'd have the attendance lady would come around and hand me like a stack of letters.
Oh, wow.
So I was sitting there like the hot shot, like, Miss Popular, here you go. Here's your stack of letters. So I'd look through all the labels. Oh my gosh, UCLA, Brown, Stanford. I was like in shock every single morning.
Oh, wow.
And then I'd go home, show my parents, and I had narrowed it down to wanting to go to the West Coast just because of the weather, being able to throw hammer and discus all year round, beautiful sunshine. Why not take the opportunity? So I didn't reply back to all of the coaches, even though now I'm looking back and I probably should have, just to keep those connections and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I would only reply back to the coaches, the schools that I was actually interested in. So I kept it to the West Coast. And so I was talking to ASU, Arizona State, reached out to UCLA, Stanford, and then a couple East Coast schools, Tennessee, Auburn, Penn State, just because I like the coaches there.
Gotcha.
So then I would talk to those coaches, every week. I'd set up little appointments to call them, speak to them on the phone for about an hour. And then, so my visits, this is such a long time ago.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot to mention University of Oregon. So I took a visit with Whitson at Oregon. That was my first visit. And I really loved it there. And I was about ready to verbally commit. And my mom was like, no, wait, like you still have all your other visits left. You can't commit after the first one just because you were shocked. And I was like, oh my gosh, but like look at the stadium and all the gear.
Yeah.
It's Oregon.
It's Hayward.
Right. So then next, I believe I went to Auburn with Coach Ebel, and that was really nice there. Then I went to Tennessee. Then after the Tennessee visit, I went on my UCLA visit. And when I went there, just the whole atmosphere and all the athletes were super nice to me. And I just got like this feeling, like a pit in my stomach, like I think this is my home.
Wow.
And then I went home and then talked it over with my parents, listed out my pros and cons about each visit and the school itself, and then came down to a conclusion that I was going to go to UCLA.
Wow. No, and I'm sure they told you about it when you got there, but prior to the recruitment process, were you aware of the legacy of UCLA throwing and probably be considered the best throwing program ever in NCAA? In fact, this weekend, I don't know if you know, but Art Venegas just got put into the Hall of Fame. You know, were you aware of that before, you know, kind of that process started? Did you even kind of know who Coach Frazier was before then?
No, and it's kind of funny, like looking back at it now, Coach Frazier was the only coach that wouldn't like hound my phone, text me every day or call me or email me. He was kind of like, he would sit back. And I guess it goes to show, like, he was like, okay, well, we have this great legacy behind us. So you either want to come here or you don't. And I've been on him about that recently because I'm like, oh, you gotta put yourself out there more and really go after these younger athletes, or they're gonna think you don't want them because all the other coaches are, you know, blowing up their phones. So, but
yeah,
I wasn't necessarily aware of the throwing legacy just because I was the first thrower and I was still super young.
Yeah.
But when I was doing my research, that's when I researched everything and whatnot.
Oh, wow. Wow. And so just no fears of leaving, you know, your comfort zone and New Jersey, across the country, you know, totally different time zones and everything.
Yeah, it was rough. I'm not gonna lie. I'd say probably like the first 2-3 weeks or so, I was really homesick. Got a few close friends there, really just hung out with my teammates every single day, got close bonds with them, and then I was good.
Wow.
But
you know, you were by far recruited among the best of the best. For the young girls and even boys that are listening to this that maybe kind of look up to you, because you know, kids nowadays, they know records and they look up and they see your name at the top. And even girls on my team they were, you know, so excited to hear that we were talking to you.
Yeah, they had a list of questions.
They did.
Can we
come on? But so what advice would you give young throwers on handling that recruiting process, whether, you know, they're just getting recruited by a couple of schools, or they're maybe a little bit like you where they're getting a lot of calls and a lot of mail, and they're kind of to figure out, you know, what 5 visits they need to take?
yeah, I mean, it could be a super overwhelming time. And I would just say you have to sit back and really think, okay, where do I see myself in the future? Because it's not just a place you're going to be for a couple months. You know, this is setting up the rest of your life and the rest of your throwing career, academic career. So it's just, you have to feel comfortable with the coach, because you really are going to be with your coach 24/7. You know, you're going to see your coach more than your roommates. So you have to feel comfortable with your coach and, you know, get along with him in order to succeed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Did the degree plan you had, did that play a factor into what school you went to? Did it matter what?
No, I was pretty open to like exploring my options, but I wanted to do something like a sciencey route. So I started out with physiological science, so just a step below pre-med, and then ended up switching to psychology because I just found it a little bit more interesting.
Gotcha. So you go into that Pac-12, and the legacy and the conference of throwing is something, you know, maybe something you've not experienced basically because you were beating by everybody 5 or 6 feet in high school. You know, and you said earlier that transition is a little tough from homesick. What was the adjustments like on the competitive nature? Because now you have someone who's overseeing your training that truly knows what he's doing and is not looking on YouTube videos.
Hi, my name is Meredith McGee, and my father is the founder of Porta Circle. We created Porta Circle in order to make throwing more accessible so that you can truly train anywhere. Growing up in Rochester, weather was often a roadblock toward training, and having the Porta Circle was a lifesaver for both the indoor and outdoor season. Circles start at $149, and go to our website to learn more. www.porta-circle.com. Porta Circle, making training convenient.
Or you might be looking at him on YouTube videos.
Right. So that transition was really hard at first, starting out for indoor season, basically because I started with college and I dropped like 60 pounds, I think, from high school to college, just from all the walking. And actually going into college, I was like, you know what, I want to lean up because I don't necessarily like the way I look. So
really?
I was like, let me lean up. And that was my goal going into college. I just wanted to, come out there feeling better about myself and the way I looked, and hopefully I'd perform better that way. So I lost a lot of weight, and it actually messed up timing in all of the events because I was much quicker in the circle. So then I had to readjust my technique and all of that. So that kind of, I felt like I was brought a step back and had to start back from zero.
Interesting. So can I ask what, so that's a drastic weight loss, 60 pounds, and especially someone of your, that stature and throwing that far. Did you just kind of start, watching what you eat, exercising more? Kind of how were you able to do that?
Yeah, so I first started cutting out what I would eat. So I went cold turkey, wouldn't eat a lot of bread. And I was basically like, I ate pretty healthy back then. It was just like too much. I would eat too much. So I just ate, my meats, veggies, grilled chicken, salmon, started incorporating a lot more fish into my diet.
Oh, wow.
And then I'd have like brown rice here or there, sweet potatoes. So yeah, I cut out what I ate for the most part. And then there was a lot more walking on campus.
Okay.
So I just the walking everywhere, and then the 4 to 5 hour training sessions every day, because I would throw 3 events every day.
Were you, and I was going to ask that, would you really?
My freshman year, we threw 3 events every day.
Oh,
yeah, that was rough.
5 hours, 6 hours of training.
Yeah. And it was more like, it wasn't like, Alyssa, you got to throw 3 events every day. I kind of wanted to be out there to get better. So Coach Frazier actually made one of the events voluntary, whether you wanted to go or not. So we'd have Hammer every morning, probably from like 10 to noon. So I'd go to class, go to Hammer, another class, come back, throw shot put and discus back to back.
Oh, wow.
Then go to the weight room, then go to another class, and then tutoring, etc.
Oh, wow. So you were busy from the time you got up until you went to bed.
Right.
So, all right. So I'm asking, so how did a college athlete be able to juggle that diet plan in that? Was it something that you would go into the athletic cafeteria and eat and stuff like that and just be that disciplined?
We had we had a really, really healthy dining hall called Bruin Plate. So the majority of the athletes would go there, and they would have a huge salad bar with every type of meat that you could imagine, whatever they were serving that day. So there was only healthy choices there. So I was very determined and disciplined to only go to that dining hall to eat.
Wow.
And I think that really took it a long way. So
Wow.
I was able to stick to my plan and all of that.
Yeah. So now you were a specimen with your physique. Are you still maintaining that diet? Has your workouts changed much from what you're doing UCLA based on, how your diet and everything?
Yeah, so I just kind of carried that diet and work ethic throughout from UCLA now over to Texas State. And now I'm going to start working with a dietitian with the US Olympic Committee.
Okay.
Now that I'm part of like one of these USATF programs for talent, it's called Talent Protection Agency for post-collegiates. So
wow.
I'm working with them. So I'm going to get on like a specific diet plan to not only like maintain, but build lean muscle.
Oh, wow.
Now that it's mainly hammer and discus. So not a lot more like shot put. I would try to like keep more mass. Now I'm trying to lean up to be a little quicker in the ring.
Yeah. Well, and so I'll ask you another question back to talking to our high school athletes and stuff. Body image for young women can be tough on some aspects. They look in themselves, they're gorgeous, they're fit, but they see something different when they look into a mirror and stuff like that. From someone who, has said they dropped 60 pounds and went into their freshman year and were disciplined, were diet, what advice or an encouragement would you kind of give, those listeners?
Yeah, so growing up, I'd say like in high school when I was getting all that publicity, there was actually a lot of yeah, there was tons of positive comments like, "Oh, you're so strong," but I would scroll down to the bottom of like the mile split posts and there was actually some like negative like, "Oh my gosh, this girl's so big." And I'm like, I have to stop looking at these comments. 'Cause it
Really?
really like messed with me mentally.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't realize like how big I was until like looking back at the pictures now in high school. And I'm like, geez, I didn't never realize that I actually was that big. But at the end of the day, you just have to like yourself and feel comfortable with how you look, you know?
Yeah. Great answer. Great answer and stuff. So you,
That is good.
so you, getting back to that freshman year and throwing 3 times a day.
That's
So
a lot.
it is a lot, but and so how would you juggle that mentally too? Because in our program we're really trying to push 3 implements and we're trying to grow awareness and hammer in the state of Texas because nobody in the state of Texas throws hammer. So we're kind of trying to create some positive awareness and saying, hey, you could be a hammer throwing coming out of the state of Texas out of high school.
Mhm.
Mentally, how would you adjust in that day-to-day of the techniques of hammer, then the rotational shot put, rotational distance, because they are different.
Right. Yeah. So it took me a while to realize that they actually complement one another. So I would go into each practice every day, like, okay, I'm walking out to hammer practice. I'd have like maybe 3 or 4 cues that I would work on that specific day. And then once hammer practice was over and I'd go back out there for shot put, I would forget about hammer. And then I would say, okay, now it's shot put time. What do I have to do now? So you really have to go from one event to the next and only focus on that one at that specific time. And I think Coach Frazier actually helped me with that because, going from high school, I would just throw all 3 for fun, and hammer wasn't really my main back in high school. So everything was shot put specific. And then, yeah, entering college, Coach Frazier was like, okay, like if you want to be this great stud athlete in all 3 of them, this is what you have to do. So he kind of paved the way for me.
Wow. Was there pressure? Was there pressure coming into that freshman year of the accolades of you're already throwing far, and as the farther you throw, sometimes it can be the PR can be an inch instead of 7 inches. Was it the pressure of trying to throw that far? Maybe I don't want to say overwhelming, but stressful.
Definitely coming out of high school, holding the national records, I had a lot of pressure on me, whether it was my family or friends back home, like, oh, Alyssa, you're great. You have to do well your first year. You have to start off strong and you don't want to burn out, because you're so young and all this, people talking behind my back. But at the end of the day, like I've always just put a lot of pressure on myself because I always have these high expectations that if I don't reach them, I'm upset at the end of the day. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of pressure, and it took me some time to really sit back, think, and relax and deal with it.
Wow. So, I'm not going, your UCLA careers, 12-time All American, your PRs kind of speak for themselves. Is there something that stands out to you the most in your accolades of UCLA that you might have come over some perseverance, or there's something that you really kind of felt like this is when I peaked in an event and really kind of smashed a throw or something like that?
Yeah, so I'll take you back to 2019. I was at the Long Beach Invitational in Long Beach, California, and the week before that, I was just having a horrible shot put workout. Like every single day, shot put, it was just, I couldn't break 15 meters. And I was coming off of throwing, I think 1730 that indoor season. This was the very beginning of outdoor season. And I don't know what it was. I was just going downhill. And I actually had a practice that Friday, and I just cried the entire practice because Coach Frazier made me go back to standing throws with the 12-pounder. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we just lifted this entire week. I'm sore. I feel broken. Now you're going to put this heavy shot put in my hand and tell me, Alyssa, you can only do standing throws. And I'm like, I hate doing standing throws. Shot
With a
put.
reverse or non-reverse?
non-reverse.
Oh shit.
So even worse. So you had to like
Yeah.
slam your hip and
I'd have
stop.
walked over, took his glasses off, and smashed him.
Right. So this was Friday, and I was a mess. So I was like crying at the end of practice. I had like a meltdown.
Yeah.
And then we left for the meet Saturday morning. We get to the meet. I think Hammer was in the morning. I threw pretty well. I want to say, if I can remember right, I think I threw like 68 meters in Hammer. So it was like an average, pretty solid day for me. And then that afternoon, I rushed to the shot put ring, and everything was just like clicking. The timing was there. Everything felt perfect. And I hit my 1802 meter throw. Remember, all my teammates were out there in the sector just jumping.
Oh wow.
And I was like, wow, like this is the moment. But throughout my collegiate career, I think that was my most memorable memory, just because everybody was there watching. And the one time Fraser, was really excited, and yeah, it was just a really fun day to have everybody there.
And to overcome the day before, like you said, you had a meltdown and then got up and kept going.
Right. And I guess it kind of reminded me that, through those hard times, you have to have those really bad days to have, better days.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you every year you made NCAAs and was very successful making the finals and all that type of stuff. Kind of explain to us the fortitude that goes through that long indoor season, that outdoor seasons, going to the prelim, the West prelim trials to get in, but then all of a sudden you're at NCAAs. It's a long season.
Right. Yeah, it's super long, and sometimes it could be mentally draining.
Yes.
And a lot of us don't necessarily take breaks. Like, we'll go home for Christmas break. Yeah, maybe like I won't throw for a week or so. But then as soon as I get back to school, you're right back into training. But mentally, it's a lot, especially the preliminary rounds. And yeah, I kind of forget how they work, whether it's the top 12 or 16, but just knowing that your mark, whatever you threw in the beginning or throughout the season, doesn't count until that meet, like what you do on that specific day, and only having 3 throws, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and you have everything, and you're just coming probably outside of conference as well.
Right.
Yeah. So one thing too I want to add too is you had a lot of battles with like Cameron Rogers early on, because y'all threw against each other, as a youth at some of those U20s. And then she goes to Cal, and you're leaning towards Hammer. You're like, damn, am I ever going to get rid of her?
Yeah.
What was those battles like?
Yeah, so I met her back, I think 2018, when I competed in Finland. Wait, no, that was my sophomore year. What am I saying? Freshman year, I think the only time I ever beat her in Hammer was at Pac-12s. It was Maggie Ewan, then me, then Cameron.
Okay.
My freshman year at Pac-12s, yeah. And then, so I kind of like was introduced to her then. Okay. And then, yeah, have competed against her ever since. We're both very like quiet. Like I'm the type of person, I don't really like to talk during competition, because not only am I nervous, but I try to stay as focused as I can be. And, obviously she's got to be focused. So we're very, what we have to do,
Wow. So I have to ask, so you go into the Pac-12 as a freshman, and you do have all these accolades, but you're throwing against Maggie Ewing and some of the best NCAA throwers in women's throwing history. Are you starstruck a little bit with like, oh my God, there's Maggie Ewing, and look what she's done as a youth. And then I think Valerie might have been at Stanford senior year as well.
Yeah. That was a huge shock, because throughout high school, I think my junior and senior year of high school, I really looked up to Maggie just because of how well of a thrower she was in, all 4 of the events. And I remember sitting down and telling my parents, like my parents were looking on Facebook or whatever, and I was like, yeah, like I want to look like that. I want to, be as good as her when I get to that age, my 5th year, senior year. So I had looked up to her for a couple years, and then, I go into these Pac-12 competitions during indoor season, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm throwing against her. And yeah, Valerie Allman as well, when she was at Stanford. It was really cool. At the same time, I was starstruck, but I was able to stay my ground And I had Frazier there every step of the way, kind of reminding me like, Alyssa, you're a great thrower too. You know, you belong here. If you didn't belong here, you wouldn't be out there on the field. So that was a good reminder.
And that was going to be my next question. Thank you for that segue. Truly, tell us something that we don't know about John Frazier, but also to kind of that bond that y'all have. Because I'll be honest, I'm sure you were kind of shocked that he said, I'm going to become the head coach at Texas State. And you were like, where?
Texas what?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, but you're my coach. So first, tell us something that we don't know about him, but got that bond, and then kind of how your approach was to him leaving and moving on.
Okay, yeah. So he's very he likes to joke around. He's a big goofball.
Yes.
But he knows the time and like when and where to act that way. So when we're at practice, like he's not going to joke around when you're in the ring throwing, because I like to laugh a lot. So I'm very giggly at practice because I like to have a good time. So he'll joke around, but then when he needs to be serious, he's serious. So that's really good. At meets, he's always very determined. He doesn't like to show a lot of emotion. Just he'll wait till the end of the meet to actually like say anything, just because he wants to, you know, keep a calm face and persona. But overall, I think this is my 6th year working with him, and it's going really well. And he gave me a call back at UCLA, and I had my degree for my bachelor's in psych planned out throughout the whole 5 years, because I wasn't, I redshirted, so I was going to stay that whole 5 years. And he gave me a call, I forget what month it was, and he was like, Alyssa, like, I've been looking around, you know, all the difficulties we've had at UCLA. I got this head coaching position at Texas State, and I took it, and I just want to let you know.
Oh, good. So
I remember like my mouth dropped, and I was like, what? I immediately started crying because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? Because when I was still in college, like I had talked this over with him, and we're like, yeah, like I'm going to continue being your coach throughout your Olympic career for as long as you want me to be. And so I was like, okay, like, do I follow him? And then I had all these thoughts running through my head. You know, am I going to be able to graduate from UCLA, because I'm not going to leave without graduating. And I've worked so hard. I'm almost done. Do I stay here with this coach? You know, what are people going to say about me? I had all these thoughts running everywhere, every which way. And then it was almost like I was going through the transfer portal again. So that was crazy. And I had all these coaches reaching out to me, and I'm like, I kind of had to lie to these other coaches and pretend like I was interested, even though all along I knew I was following Coach Frazier.
Oh, wow.
So I had to keep it a secret. And so I knew I was following Frazier. So I finished up, luckily I was able to finish up my degree plan at UCLA by December. So I entered the transfer portal, I want to say October. And then I sat down with my head coach at UCLA, basically telling him my plans. And he shut me out. And he was like, Alyssa, you can't practice with the team. You can't use our facilities. And I cried in his office.
Really?
Yeah, he said some rude things to me too. He's like, Alyssa, we don't want you here anymore. So I stood up and I just walked out of his office. But our throws coach there, Sean Denard, he was more understanding. But since he had just gotten that position and he was new, he didn't want to step on anybody's toes. So he kind of took a step back. And, you know, I respect him for that, because if I was in his position, I wouldn't, you know, try to go out of my way to help this other athlete that's leaving. So for about 2 months or so, I was training on my own, and they gave me some really ridiculous hours. I could only use the track from 5 to 7 a.m.
Oh, wow.
or after 7 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't going to go out there that late, because that's just way too late to be throwing, you know, hammer. I can't throw in the dark, even though there's lights out there in Drake Stadium. So I would go out there at 5, and I'd wake up, go to the gym to lift at 5 a.m. Then I would go throw hammer or discus into the net out there. And it was just really boring, and I hated every minute of it.
Oh, wow.
But I just kept telling myself, you know, 2 more months and then I'm out of here.
Were you allowed to even use the weightlifting facilities and stuff there? Did they allow you to do that?
they allowed me, but the hours they gave me didn't work with my class schedule. So I think they were like in the middle of the day, like 1 or 2 p.m. And I had class during that time. So I had to lift at the rec center of the school.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. And I do want to say, I know Coach Denard's a great guy. I love him. We talk on the phone. So, shout out to Coach Denard. But at the same time, too, that had to be tough. You're like that oh shit moment. You had to do a sudden change, and it's kind of a football analogy, like we got to make this adjustment and stuff. So you definitely came out of it. My question is though, the transfer portal. That's a hot topic going on right now in NCAA. You took part of that. Do you feel it's a positive thing for college and stuff because it helped you get into your situation, or kind of, what's your opinion of it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a positive situation to be in, specifically if you don't like the school or your coach, like where you're at right now. Like it's good to have that opportunity for younger athletes. And I think they changed the rules around a bit now. So you can enter the portal without telling your coach first. So the school just has to okay it, which is a good thing because, if the coach finds out, he could pull your scholarship and all that nonsense. But yeah. So I think it's a good thing. It was just very stressful time because I'm like, oh, I don't want to go through this a second time all over again.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was a good thing. Like it needed to be done.
Yeah. And see, now you're floating a river in San Marcos.
Right. Yeah.
Eating
barbecue. So this in 2021, you made your first trials.
Right. Yeah. That was.
Yeah. So what was that experience like? Because you've kind of been working towards that goal and building, and you had your PR and Hammer, in the qualifying rounds, kind of what was that experience like? Because now, and I'm sure you've thrown against some professionals before, but now you're a collegiate throwing against Deanna Price and Barry and Brooke Anderson, and Whitney Simmons was there. So kind of what was that experience like throwing those trials in Eugene?
Yeah, that was awesome. And that was my first time because back in 2016, I think I was 25th in shot put. So I missed it by one spot. So going into that 2021 trials was very like, this is your chance. And coming out of NCAA Championships, coming in ranked second, I had a really bad day, ended up placing 10th, just an awful performance by myself. And I went home that day and just cried. And then the following day, I think Fraser and I didn't talk for 2 days because we were both just very upset about the performance in Hammer. And then I had about maybe 4 days to kind of gather everything, get back into training. And then Fraser was like, okay, Alyssa, new day. Forget about NCAAs, the college season is done. Now you're on to the next level. You've been here before, you've thrown with the top of the top, you're well beyond 70 meters. Let's just try to have some fun with it. And then, so I kind of went into the competition, not really having many expectations for myself. It was just like, anything could be better than what I threw at NCAAs last week. So I can't really get much lower than that. So I was kind of really relaxed and, I kind of just went for it. I think I threw 73, 75 meters in Hammer. And yeah, that was a really, really good day.
Yeah. I want to ask one technical question, because in your Hammer, you're kind of offset to the right a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the rationale for that?
Okay. So I offset a little.
Throws.
Yeah, so I offset because I do 4 heels throughout my throws. So I offset just because I would over rotate. So it kind of gives me more room to work in the ring. And actually, I noticed, I think Gwen Berry offsets to the right a little bit. So when I was learning Hammer, I kind of brought that upon Coach Fraser and was like, oh, should I try this? And he's like, yeah, go for it. So then I started to offset to the right, turn my wrists, and it really like locks me in a lot better to feel that connection through 180.
Oh, wow. Do y'all do much with heavier balls or short wires in your training?
I didn't start doing heavier or incorporating different implements until my junior year of college. So what was that, 2020, I think it was.
Yeah.
I started throwing some 16-pound hammers. I throw the 14, 5K, 4.5s, 4K. And now I'm more into like a regimented weight distribution. So
Gotcha.
every week, Coach Frazier kind of sets it in stone, and I know what to expect that day of practice, and even throwing some layer balls.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, wow. So how does that juggle that now with just discus?
Yeah, so now I throw hammer 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, and then discus only twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay. Now, I think you've practiced offsetting in discus a little bit too, right? Or you did, and now you're back to the center?
I think I offset, yeah, I put my left foot down the center of the ring.
Gotcha. Okay. And is that something y'all just kind of worked on and said, let's try it and go for it?
Yeah, so and this is kind of funny because each meet I would switch to whatever felt better that day. But I think now I'm gonna stick more towards like, okay, this is how I set up, this is what I'm gonna do. But it was the same thing, like being able to get my feet down in the correct position and everything locked and loaded in my power position.
Wow. What's his philosophy for you in like the orbit of the disc? Because I don't want to say you don't carry it really high, out of that. And I don't want to say you carry it low, but what's the conversation about the orbit of the disc?
Yeah, so it's more like keep it flat. And I've been watching like a lot of Valerie Ullman videos where she kind of like turns her hand a specific way and like, carries it back higher up, like behind her. And so I've been trying out some different things and angles for the perfect position. And I guess it's just, what works for you. But Frazier likes to say, keep it flat and then get low and use your legs to turn your hip through.
Oh, nice. So y'all have such a good relationship that he allows you as much autonomy and input into your technique as you want.
Right. And like throughout college, it was more like, okay, Alyssa, like this is what I want you to do. Now, how do you feel? What do you think about it? And then recently, this is kind of funny, a couple months ago when I started back this year, first year post-collegiate, he was like, okay, Alyssa, you can communicate more to me now. You can come out here to practice and tell me what specifically you would like to work on instead of me being out here giving you cues. So it's a lot different now. But at the same time, it's good because, he's still there, but he gives me more freedom with what I'd like to work on that day.
That's awesome. Now you aren't going back to look at YouTube videos and say, hey.
Right.
I want to try this.
When you go back in January, you should pick up the shot put and start gliding and say, look, I'm a glide shot putter now.
Yeah, that'd be funny. See what he would do.
Or shuffle.
Or go back to the shuffle. Yeah.
I mean, I did throw a standing throw shot put a couple weeks ago because I was demonstrating for some of the new rookies because I'm also a volunteer assistant coach there. So I'll get all my training done in the morning and then come back in the afternoon for 3 or 4 hours, coach the discus and hammer thrower group, and then have night classes.
Oh, so how's that as a coach? So how's it now on being sitting back behind the net and observing somebody else that?
Yeah, it's hard.
Is it?
It's hard. I didn't realize some of the things that, Coach Frazier and all you other coaches out there would go through. And now I like really see it like, oh, like the athlete just walked away from me and I'm still talking. And then I'm like, okay, I can't yell at them, So I would just sit back and be like, okay, let me just wait till they get back here. And then I'll tell them what I have to say. But yeah, it's different seeing it from that different perspective. And I think in turn, it's actually helping me because I'm over there explaining the basics and I'm like, okay, now these are going to like sink into my head and remind me, turn my foot a little earlier or hit this position a little better.
Wow. Awesome.
Good.
So tell us overall, your assistant coach there, Coach Frazier's leading the charge for Texas State. What's going on with the track program? I know y'all got some really cool locker facilities and your own weight room and stuff. You've had some great recruits coming in with some commitments. What's going on overall, big picture of Texas State track and field?
Yeah, so I think Frazier's trying to build the program. We have a lot of really good assistant coaches there. Some of his old athletes or, other coaches that he's met along the way throughout his collegiate coaching career. And it's a really young program. And I think approximately 4 to 5 years, they're going to be really good up there, with the best of the best. But yeah, I see a really bright future for the program over there.
That's
and
awesome.
It's nice having our own weight room. I think we have maybe 10 squat racks and benches and all of that. So, the only teams that are in there are track and cross country.
Oh, wow.
So if a couple pleats go missing, you know who to call.
Not the football guys.
Right.
For sure. And so in your plan is, next Olympics, and then are we talking maybe, I think Los Angeles after that, or after is Paris? Yeah.
I think, yeah, LA, Los Angeles 2028.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to try to continue throwing for as long as I can, as long as my body allows me to.
Okay.
But I definitely want to make an Olympic team one year.
Gotcha.
That's the goal.
That's for sure. And what better being in Los Angeles back where you're kind of your foundation as a collegiate thrower started as well.
Right. And just being in that atmosphere in general. I'm not sure if it's going to be at UCLA's campus or if they're going to build their own Coliseum, stadium, whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be really cool.
Is there something you found out about being a professional that you weren't aware of going into? Is there something like you're like, oh my God, I wasn't aware of this?
I guess a lot of the same thing applies from like high school to college and now college to into the professional world, that there's still a lot of jealousy out there. And I guess I didn't necessarily realize that until like recently.
Okay.
Like you see a lot of like the really top athletes signing these major brand deals, and you're always going to have those other athletes that are at the same level not getting those offers, and they're just going to be a little jealous over that. And that was something like I dealt with from high school entering college. And yeah,
it's being a professional thrower it can be very, I don't want to say cutthroat, but yeah, it could be it could be a fine line on some stuff for sure. So especially in the women's world. So you got anything else?
I don't. She answered a lot of stuff I have.
Yeah, and great insight too. I what a great throwing life you've had, and we wish you the best of luck with everything that you do.
I do think of a question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your parents, your dad was such a big influence. Was he able to watch a lot of your college meets? I meant to ask that earlier when we were talking college, and we didn't ask that.
Yeah, so they came to a lot of the East Coast meets like for indoor season, and then a couple of the outdoor NCAA championships. I think they went to the one back in 2019, which was in Austin, Texas. So that was their first time going to Texas.
Wow.
So we got a lot of barbecue then.
Yeah. Have they come to visit you at San Marcos?
Yeah, they went to one meet last year. Yeah.
Oh wow! Now your younger sister, isn't she throwing at Texas State as well, or is?
She was, and now she decided not to throw anymore because she she doesn't like the sport as much as I do. She's more into the arts, so she's really good with art. And yeah.
Awesome. Now is she still enrolled in school there, or is she back home?
She's gonna go back to school somewhere back home.
Okay, awesome. So I'm guessing, are you maybe planning to bring in other professional athletes with Coach Frazier, just like like Nebraska's doing with some of their professional athletes coming in there, and some of the other top college coaches are bringing, like Valerie and Tripp at Austin as well? Is that maybe the plan? Have y'all talked about that?
So I think Coach Frazier wants to keep it small,
Okay.
and there hasn't really been many professional athletes that have reached out to him. Right now we have a Canadian Olympian in the pole vault, a girl training like using the facilities, but she's also alumni with Texas State.
Okay.
Then we have a marathoner, distance runner that trains there. We also have a 70-meter hammer guy training with us that went to UTSA, Victor Perez. I don't know if you know him, but he's been training with us
Oh, wow.
every day.
And I think y'all signed a big signing class, especially on the boys' side for some internationals.
Yeah, we got I think a guy from the Bahamas is coming next month. We have a guy from Jamaica, Nigeria, who else? Iceland. Yeah, so we got a lot of good variety of cultures.
Wow,
So it'll be a good season.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it Zeb, and I'm gonna arrange a one-on-one throwing like in New Braunfels between you and Valerie and the discus. Loser buys barbecue. Well, we can have. Hey, she's a former hammer thrower. She, we could do 2 events. So. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking time during your Christmas holidays away from your family. And man, just go kick some ass. We're big fans and hope to see you at the meets and root you on and just do what you've been doing since you've been 14, 15 years old.
Yeah, thank you for having me. That was fun.
Yeah, you're definitely a legend.
Thank you.
Be very, very proud of what you did. That 58, I do not think will ever be broke. I don't ever see that being break. And because just now that it's so hard to get high level girls out to throw when you got soccer and volleyball and basketball, and your top athletes aren't really gravitating towards throwing. Now, I will say in this class this year in the 2024 class, there is some really talented young throwers coming up, and we're seeing some bigger marks than we've seen in the past. And I'm thinking, 53, 54, but the 58, I don't know about the 58 for sure. So,
yeah. And I think having all those other sports really takes away from that because, nobody wants to go throw when you have the flashy basketball and soccer and, the main team sports.
Yeah. Well, it takes that mental fortitude and the drive like you had, as a youth doing the 200 to 300, throws in your driveway. And a lot of kids, they have that dedication, but they might think, oh, I'm just going to do this 50 times or 60 times. And in their mind, that's enough. But in the real world, it's not enough.
Right.
Yeah, that's because true. It's an individual sport. And a lot of times as a team sport, we could get by with a win and be on the team, but we didn't contribute to that win as well. So yeah, and I'm sure the better success you have and the more you're going to grow the sport, more and more people is going to look up to you. So one thing I can encourage you to do is make yourself accessible and, grow in the sport. Cause there's a lot of girls that do look up to you that know your records. Cause they do, we're on a list. That's one thing I would say is be that. And also to grow the sport of hammer in the state of Texas.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just. Yeah.
Here's your goals. Just help us.
I know, because I try because I have a lot of kids that are doing hammer, and we're trying to get them to grow the sport because there's not a lot of great hammer throwers coming out. Just because your dad took the bull by the horns and said, hey, we're going to do this once a week on Sundays. Look what you've turned into.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in Texas.
Yeah.
That happen in other
Just
states,
think if he didn't do that and you waited till your freshman year to throw hammer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I've been I'll reply back to high school athletes. A lot of younger girls have been reaching out to me. Good. So I'll take some time every now and then and reply back to them. Because I know when I was in their position, I was reaching out to some of the professionals and no one was really replying back. Other than Maggie Ewan, she replied back to me.
Yeah. Throwers, our female throwers, our male throwers to be accessible, just like, our professional football players or baseball players or something like that to really grow the sport and make it there. Because y'all are cool, whether y'all realize it or not. Especially on my kids,
You're way cool.
My kids knew who you were immediately, and they were like, ask her this, ask her this, ask her this. So, there's people who do look up to you. So, and that is because you carry yourself very well. You are a professional, and you have the results as well. So,
yeah. Just yesterday, he was like, hey, guess who we're having on the podcast? And he said, she is the record holder, and before he could even get out there, like, oh my gosh, Alyssa Wilson.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. So, and then you have the fifth Jackson 5 with your coach and his glasses and his collar pulled up.
Oh.
Yeah. The first time, I'm sure, if you ever seen some like young high school pictures when he had that box fro when he threw at UCLA? So.
Yeah, every now and then he'll pull up an old picture and show us for a laugh.
Does he still I'm curious, does he get in the ring and still throw for you any?
No, he hasn't thrown. He'll get in the ring and like demonstrate.
Okay.
And more recently, now that like he's getting older, he'll be like, oh, Alyssa, can you come here and demonstrate for me? And he'll just like, he'll explain to me what he wants me to show someone, and then I'll just do it for him.
You will. Yeah, as we do get old, our knees do get bad. I can say that for sure. So, well, thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you. Good luck. Go kick some butt.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank
you.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me.
God bless you. Look forward to seeing you in person one of these days.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, Alyssa. Thanks.
We want to thank Alyssa for being on. Just some great insight to a young thrower who had a lot of success basically on the high school level that had the fortitude and carried that on and drive. The one thing I really just love is you could really tell the determination, the competitive spirit, but the drive that she has. And that's something that you're not coached to do. That's something that you don't, there's no training technique. That's something inside you. And I think that's something that she was born with. And I think that was something that, her family instilled with her with hard work. And that was very obvious by the 200 to 300 throws that she would do, in her basement turns by her dad. And I think the bonding of the relationship between the father and the daughter and that aspect of it is he took it upon herself to dive headfirst into the training with her and looked up YouTube and became a resource and kind of educated himself to teach her how to throw. And I'm sure there was a lot of trial and error going on with this, but at the same time too, she was very obvious that she was very natural. And I think too, because she was a multi-sport athlete with being a basketball player, but also that tied in to being a powerlifter as well, carried those high marks definitely through high school.
Yeah, you kind of hit on what I was thinking. How awesome it was that her dad stepped in and encouraged that, and her parents, not just her dad, her parents supported her in that and continue to do that. And I'm still floored that she said every night in high school, and I believe her, every night she did 200 to 300. And was it hammer or shot? It was shot.
Shot put, yeah. Working
on her shot put. I'm going to say that again. Every night she made the time to do 200 to 300 turns. Made the time. She's busy, athlete, school, all of those things, but she made the time because it was priority and was important to her.
And I think she said it was necessary sacrifice.
It was a necessary sacrifice to help her reach the goals that she had. And she is just beginning. I mean, yes, she had that awesome high school career, but it'd be awesome to see what she can do in other influences.
Yeah, for sure. And even her, All American status 12 times at UCLA. And to even have the courage to follow Coach Frazier to San Marcos and build that relationship and have that relationship. And it goes to show you too the bond of a thrower and a coach in the throwing aspect. There's nothing like it. Because when you're a position coach of a football and you're responsible for 5 or 6 or 2 or 3 of the quarterbacks in the quarterback room, that bond is a little different, because you're coaching big picture team stuff. The relationship of a throwing coach with that thrower is very unique and can be special because you're kind of in this together. And it's all eyes and ears on deck to bring out the best in that performance, whether it's a technical thing, a motivational thing, whether it's words of encouragement, or just like she said about him, he just kind of sits back sometime on meet levels and it's not very raw, but there's a determinedness, and then he'll kind of give critique at the very end and stuff like that. So
They have a great relationship.
For
You can
sure.
tell she loves and respects him tremendously.
yes, and I think it's like he said, there's more than just a coach. It kind of comes in a little bit of a father figure there as well.
Even if he made her do a stand throw with the
With the-
12 count before the NCAA.
Yeah, well, no, that was before she threw her PR.
That's right.
That's before she threw that PR. So definitely one of the best.
Mm.
It's one of the best female high school throwers of all times. She deserves that accolade, and being the national record holder in the indoor and the outdoor is in those records, especially that outdoor mark. It's probably never going to be broke. I don't foresee that coming anywhere close to throwing over 58.
Someone out there say challenge it.
Yeah, challenge.
Somebody say no, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. So, all right. Thank our sponsors, TTFCA, Texas Track and Field Coach Association. Winter clinics coming up, so go get registered. Lots of great talkers, lots of great speakers. Sorry, lots of great speakers there. And then there's a virtual option. So go to that website. So if you can't make it to the in-person, or if you can do both, right? All in-person attendees get the free access to the virtual clinic. So make sure you do that. You won't want to miss out on that. Some great coaches talking about everything and great thrilling.
And you get 32 continuing education hours as well for attending the clinic.
Which is important. At fourthrows.com, use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off as you're looking to get new implements. PortaCircle, go to PortaCircle.com. Right now with winter coming on, we've got a great Christmas special for you. Use the code XMAS.
TTFCA 15.
XMAS T. We'll type it in here so you can see it. XMAS TTFCA 15 to get 15% off of a PortaCircle. If you're in the Austin area, go to Ready Up AD, Ready Up Athletic Development, 512-507-8347 to talk to Zach Phillips. You can also look for his basic throw strength program on Train Heroic if you're looking to just incorporate a lot more weightlifting strength into your workouts. And
Hello, Talking Throws Texas podcasters. I'm Bruce Caldwell. I'm here today to introduce the Fiber Sport Discus. Yes, many of you thought I only made great vaulting poles. I have been bringing quality discuses to the throwers' hands for over 40 years. First as Cantabrian USA representative, then for the past 10 years as the Nelco discus distributor. I introduced the yellow-plated discus for the plastic's best durability. If your Fiber Sport discus breaks, we replace it. Our studies have reached into the science of using a wind tunnel and adding microchips to the discus to find the spin, the gravity, the flight stability of the discus. We have found it's not about rim weight anymore. It's more about creating a balanced stability to allow the discus to fly and surf the wind. Our new Fiber Sport discus is made to be selected to fit your needs, no matter the weather, no matter the conditions. Check out our discus selection guide at fibersportdiscus.com and find a dealer in your area that sells our fine product. Thank you, Jason Janelle, for allowing me to talk with your listeners on Talk and Throws Texas Style.
go to the website, thornfactory.com.
And then follow us on YouTube as well.
Yes, and Instagram. Reach out for lessons. I'm doing lots of lessons with little ones, getting introduced to some shot put. I taught a couple girls the other day. We're working on their glide. Looking really good. So excited about all that. So give us a call.
And Lifting DFW Human Performance. If you need help with Olympic lifting, fitness, weight loss regimen, whatever you need, go to the website Lifting DFW or follow us on Instagram, and you can reach out to me through the website at thornfactory.com.
That's it.
We'll see y'all down
Everybody
below.
have a very Merry Christmas. And after this, we'll see you in the new year.
For
See
sure.
you at TTFCA.
Yes, come by and say hello.
Come by and see us. Have a Merry Christmas. Still recording.